Right, well there it is. Finished trap. You can click off the video now. Thanks for watching. No, this isn't the trap I'm going to make. This is an example of the trap how I've seen them, and it's just a pain to make. It takes a lot of time. If you don't have a drill, to drill a hole through it, and if you imagine your stick go into that hole and you'd have a knot in it and everything else. But you got to make that hole. If you don't have a drill, you get your knife out and you're carving away at it. But it all takes time and effort. So, how can I improve on this thing? Firstly, now these are all just my thoughts, theories, because where I am, I can't trap birds. There's only one species of bird I'm allowed to trap, and that's the Indian myna bird. So I don't get the opportunity to try this trap out. Now this cord I'm using, you wouldn't use that in a real situation. I'm just using it so you can see it more clearly. You'd use something a lot thinner than that, but this is just some 550 paracord, and I've taken the inner strands out of it. So I've gone up, I've collected this dead tree, as you can see. Tidied up a bit. Alright, and then down here I've got a fork branch, and I'm going to cut that off somewhere. Something like that. And that's going to replace that hole. So then what I need is a perch. Now it might land up on the top here to start with, but if I've got bait tied onto this stick, you could split it and put berries inside there, and then they'll land to eat the berries, and the berries don't fall off because they're wedged into the stick. So then I want to have it down here. First thing I need to do is flatten this out a bit. Right, so I've just squared that up, and I'll cut a slot. Right, and that's it. I wedge that in there, like that. The trap's set. Bring it out a little bit to fine tune it to make it a hair trigger, but basically the bird lands on it and it triggers the trap. So all I'm doing, getting it where I want it, have this running past that slot, and then I'm just wedging that in. And she's set. Now I've done this trigger system with a cage trap that I had, and with the big heavy weight that I had on that door, this would still tend to slip out. So what I had to do was come from underneath and run the cord. It's hard to show, but I had to run this past it and then loop it back around. So basically the cord was underneath it, but with this weight that I've got here, it's not that bad. Then you just position your snare how you want it, over the top like normal, and as the bird lands, it's caught. Well, that all looked great, but it wasn't. So that wasn't the first time I tried to set the trap off, that was the second time. The first time it failed to catch me. I just put it down to the fact that it's a primitive trap. Sometimes you're going to catch them, sometimes you're going to miss them. And so I just went on, and every other time I set it off, it caught me. So I made the rest of the video, went home, did all the editing, made the thumbnail for it. And then I went back and looked at that clip of the first time I set it off and it didn't catch me, and I really analysed it. And it was at that point that I realised this trap doesn't work. I mean, it looks good on camera, but in a real world situation, it's not going to catch a bird. But I can make it catch a bird. So let me show you what the problem is with it. Bird lands, triggers the trap. So far, it's all good. But then what happens? So what you saw there is as this pulls, this snare whips down and then it gets dragged up. So as you pull this up, this goes down. Yeah? And so it's pulling it away from the bird that's going to be landing on it. And I didn't realise it at the time. When I was setting it off, I just pushed my hand through and got caught. But if it was a bird just landing lightly on it and flew off as soon as the stick started to give way underneath it, you're not going to catch it. So what I need to do is move this slot. It's got to go up here as close as I can get it to this fork, so that way the cord is pulling straight through the fork, similar to what it was doing in the original trap, pulling it through that hole. And the other thing I'm going to do is I'm just going to get a little stick, just going to lash that on there, still leave a hole there through the cordage to go through, but that's just going to prevent the bird getting flung over the top. And I don't know if that would happen, but if I can put one more thing in place that'll prevent something from possibly going wrong with it, it increases my chance of success. So that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to cut a slot. And your bird lands and it's caught. You don't have to use a weight if you don't want to. You could lash on a real springy pole on here and use it as a spring snare as well. Now also bear in mind, using thicker cordage, it's not going to move as quickly and as freely. So if this is nylon fishing line, it's going to pull a lot quicker. It's not going to kill the bird instantly, but it's going to pin it there and hold it. Feed your line through there. So you've got a snare, you've got an overhand knot. Now you fold this back on itself. Yep, just folding it back up over itself, and then this keep going over itself until that overhand knot now on the top side. Yep, so there's your snare, overhand knot. I'm folding it back over itself, and then take my trigger stick, my perch, which I've got a little notch in it. Yep. And that notch goes onto the side where the other string is. So if you had that string on the other side, you'd turn it so it'd be that way, but I have to turn it so it's that way. Then I'm pushing in just underneath this knot, yeah, into that slot. Now I let go of that pretty quick. I didn't plan to let go of it that quickly. Usually you just slowly apply the weight to it, but it worked out for me anyway. So then it's jammed on that knot and it can't slide around the side because of the other little notch. And then you open up your snare over the top. But yeah, that's it. Thanks for watching. But if you were concerned about it, now if your pole was longer, I make this as fine as possible without putting my knee underneath it.